Chain Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QNReview. That is @CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QNreview.com. That is INFORMATION@CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026, from the news section. Glasgow firms plan lucrative trade mission to China. Article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow businesses will be taking part in trade missions to China this year. Following the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, visiting China for talks with President Xi Jinping, business leaders are backing a strong relationship between the countries. Businesses in Glasgow have established links with China, particularly in recent years with emerging export opportunities. UK business leaders have called for the Prime Minister's visit to China to be rooted in pragmatism and focused on delivering for the UK economy. The government has been told it cannot afford to ignore the country's third largest trading partner and the world's second biggest economy. British Chambers of Commerce said, UK-China trade currently generates around £100 billion a year, with over 10,000 firms involved in exporting. Glasgow firms are part of the picture. Glasgow Chamber of Commerce said it has built particularly strong relationships in Shanghai and Beijing over the past 7 years. The Chamber plans to strengthen these ties further by leading trade missions later this year, including participation in the China Shanghai International Technology Fair in June and the China International Import Expo in November, alongside Glasgow businesses and brands. Stuart Patrick, CBE, Chief Executive, Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, said, UK-China relations are critical to the UK economy, and the Prime Minister's forthcoming visit to China must focus on sustaining and strengthening our trading relationship. At a time of heightened geopolitical uncertainty, trade and collaboration are essential to building resilience, diversifying markets, and creating new growth opportunities for businesses on both sides. Glasgow businesses have a long-standing and successful relationship with the Chinese market, especially Shanghai, where Glasgow Chamber of Commerce is playing a growing role in opening doors and supporting companies through trade missions and commercial partnerships. This visit must focus on giving businesses the confidence to invest and expand, building on the success of the more than 10,000 British firms that already export to China each year. That article was written by Stuart Patterson and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026, from the news section. Youth in Mearns care home resident's surprise on 90th birthday. Report by Gilly McPherson. A care home resident enjoyed a surprise performance by the Cooperation Band and an emotional family reunion as she marked her 90th birthday. The appearance of the renowned brass group proved a fitting way for Cathy Jones to celebrate the big occasion, given her family's deep roots in the banding tradition. Her father, Thomas Telfer, joined the Cooperation Band in the 1940s and became its solo trombonist. Cathy, who resides at Newton House in Newton Mearns, was also joined by her son Alistair, who flew in from Singapore to be part of the celebrations, along with friends. She said, "It was all such a wonderful surprise. Not only seeing my son, but to have the band here playing songs. It reminded me of all those years of listening to my father play." The Cooperation Band was originally formed in 1918 as the Scottish Cooperative Wholesale Society Band by workers at Shield Hall factories in Glasgow. In 2019, it was renamed the Cooperation Band following support from Scotland Cooperative. It is one of the most successful bands in Scottish brass band history, having won the Scottish Championships 37 times. Cathy's father Thomas began his musical career with the now discontinued Shotts Foundry Band, where he played alongside his own father, creating a proud family tradition of musicianship. He then moved to Clydebank Borough Band. His older brother, Charles, was a conductor there, and together they played Rule Britannia at the launch of Hull No. 534, later known as RMS Queen Mary, in 1934. Cathy lived in Shield Hall with her family from 1946 to 1960, during which time her father earned a reputation as Scotland's finest trombonist. Band playing was a huge feature of our local community, especially for those who worked in and had connections with the factories, added Cathy. That report was written by Gilly McPherson. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026, from the news section. Rangers supporter dies in Porto as club issue statement. Report by David Irvin. A Rangers supporter has died in Porto while following the Ibrox club in Europe. A Rangers statement on Thursday evening confirmed the tragic news that a fan had passed away overnight in Portugal. The club correspondence confirms the death was due to natural causes and happened overnight in the Portuguese city. Rangers officials are now working with the local authorities and the British authorities. A statement read, "Everyone at Rangers is extremely saddened to have learned of the passing of one of our supporters overnight in Porto from natural causes. The thoughts of everyone at the club are with their family and friends at this incredibly difficult time, and we are liaising with both the Portuguese and British authorities." That article was written by David Irvin. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026. From the news section, exclusive. Thug repeatedly stabbed man in Royston over £350 debt. An exclusive written by court reporter Grant McCabe. A murder bid thug ambushed a young man who owed him £350. John Paul Riley, 21, sped up on his dirt bike to confront Dylan Brown in Glasgow's Royston on February the 1st, 2024. Riley had previously tried to get the cash back from the 20-year-old. The victim had been walking to a shop with a 13-year-old boy at the time. Riley appeared from behind on his bike with his hood up and his face partially covered by a snood. The laughing thug told him, "I told you I would see you, Dylan." Prosecutor Anna Chisholm today told the High Court in Glasgow that Riley then pulled the victim to the ground and repeatedly struck him with a knife. Dylan managed to stagger to his feet before Riley escaped on his dirt bike. A bloodstained Dylan asked the boy to get him help as he needed medical help. The victim's mum then drove him to hospital. Dylan stated, "I cannot breathe." He was stabbed twice in the back and once in the chest. Dylan required extensive emergency treatment. The injuries included a collapsed lung. The court heard he had been at serious risk of catastrophic bleeding. Dylan, who also had an injury to his bowel, remained in hospital for almost a week. He has been left scarred for life. The court was told Dylan remains badly affected by his ordeal and continues to have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Miss Chisholm today handed Judge Lord Matthews a victim impact statement detailing how Dylan has suffered. Riley, also of Royston, could not be traced at the time, but later handed himself into police. He today admitted, via his KC Thomas Ross, to a charge of attempted murder. Riley had faced a number of other allegations, including earlier forcing his way into a property and hitting Dylan with a baseball bat, but not guilty pleas were accepted by prosecutors. The attacker had been on bail. He was remanded by Lord Matthews pending sentencing in March. That article was an exclusive written by court reporter Grant McCabe. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026. From the news section, tributes paid after sad death of Glasgow writer and Mela founder. This article is written by Anne Fotheringham. Tributes have been paid to a Glasgow writer who helped run the city's first ever Mela festival. Gurmeet Singh Mathu, 70, a well-known community activist and playwright, died at home in York Hill earlier this month. Central Gurdwara, Glasgow's Sikh temple, announced the details of his funeral on its social media pages, adding, "It is with deep sorrow that we announce the passing of Gurmeet Singh Mathu." Many followers expressed sadness at the news, with one saying Gurmeet would be deeply missed. Gurmeet was born in 1955 at Lennox Castle Maternity Hospital in East Dunbartonshire, Scotland, to parents Tej and Sohan. The family lived mainly in Glasgow, but also spent some years in Cromarty, in the north of Scotland. In the 1970s, Gurmeet settled in the York Hill area, where he remained for the rest of his life. He held a variety of jobs across his lifetime, but from an early age primarily saw himself as a writer. Following rejection of his first novel, a work of science fiction called These Lunatic Gods, he turned his hand to radio comedy, responding to a call from Glasgow's Radio Clyde for new writers, and found his work well received. In his own words, as a Scottish Indian writer, he was perceived in those days as an oddity, but an Asian arts group asked him to write a stage play for them. The result was his first full-length play, Citizen Sing, co-written with Ian Hopkins. The play was performed at the Glasgow Arts Centre in 1984 and at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Gurmeet wrote further stage plays, including Every Bloody Sunday in 1985, also with Ian Hopkins, and Cowboys and Indians in 1987, which was performed by Tag Theatre Company at the Citizens Theatre. Our sister titled The Herald reviewed the play and said, "Mathu's serious, sincere message would seem to be that the most important element in deciding who you are is to declare yourself a human being among other human beings." In 1989, Gurmeet contributed a piece entitled The Stormer to Long Story Short, a touring stage play produced by 784 Theatre Company. The Sunday Times newspaper described this as an offbeat romantic comedy full of incident, colour and suspense, and Gurmeet later expanded the story into a full-length novel. In 1992, as part of 784 Scotland Matters tour, Gurmeet wrote The Gifty Guinness, which drew on his long-standing support for Scottish independence. He continued to write for radio, including Sick as a Parrot, 1990, These Magic Words, 1994, and Shoulders, 1998. He also had two sitcom pilots, Coconuts and Doc, commissioned by the BBC, and he won the Scottish Screen/DNA Films First Draft Award for his first full-length film script, Disciple. Gurmeet was also known for his community-focused work. He was project coordinator for the first three Glasgow Mela festivals, which began at the Tramway in 1990 as part of Glasgow City of Culture celebrations. He was inspired by his heritage to produce Common Cause, a documentary on the contribution of the Indian Army to the Allied cause during World War II, and an exhibition entitled Sikhs in Glasgow. As a long-term York Hill resident, he led campaigns for improved facilities in the area and also ran the York Hill Theatre Group. In 2023, he successfully campaigned for a defibrillator to be installed in the housing development where he stayed, describing it as his greatest achievement. Having trained in the 1980s as a journalist, Gurmeet later qualified as a coach and latterly created a range of resources to support aspiring and new writers, drawing on his own experiences to advise against pigeonholing oneself into a particular style or genre. In 2019, he reflected, "I'm not rich and I'm not famous, but I am a writer, and that's all I ever set out to be. Not the kind of writer I expected to be, a novelist, but a dramatist. If I had known this when I started, I could have saved a lot of time." In his later years, Gurmeet self-published a number of novels, scripts and short stories, confirming that his own urge to write in a range of styles and genres never left him. Gurmeet's funeral will take place at 11:15am on February the 4th at Glasgow, Maryhill Crematorium, and after at Central Gurdwara Singh Sabha on Berkeley Street. Donations in his memory can be made to the Glasgow Children's Hospital charity. That article was written by Anne Fotheringham. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 29th of January 2026, from the news section. Women charged after major drugs raid in Glasgow, Lamb Hill area. By Aidan Maxwell. A woman has been charged following a drugs raid in Glasgow. Police Scotland carried out a warrant at a property in Stratshire Grove in the Lamb Hill area on Thursday, November 27th. Officers attended the address as part of an operation targeting alleged drug activity. A 59-year-old woman was arrested in connection with the raid. She has since been charged in connection with alleged drug offences. Police confirmed the report will be sent to the Procurator Fiscal. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, "A 59-year-old woman has been arrested and charged in connection with drugs offences. She is subject of a report to the Procurator Fiscal." It follows an operation on Thursday the 27th of November 2025 where officers, acting under warrant, recovered drugs from a property on Stratshire Grove, Lamb Hill. Report by Aidan Maxwell. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 30th of January 2026, from the news section. Glasgow shopkeeper locked up after OAP conned in TSB bank scam, by Courts reporter Conor Gordon. A pensioner was scammed out of £333,000 in a bogus bank fraud. William Thompson was conned into believing that there was a suspicious activity on his account by a man pretending to work for TSB Bank in January 2024. The unwitting 81-year-old was then persuaded to open 2 new accounts and send the relevant cars to a grocery shop run by crook Mohammed Asif in Uddingston, Lanarkshire. The stolen cash was then used to buy almost £200,000 of Apple products and more than £40,000 of gold. Asif, 50, is now behind bars after he pleaded guilty to a charge of being involved in an arrangement for the use of criminal property. He will be sentenced at a later date at Glasgow Sheriff Court. Mr. Thompson had received a call from a person with an English accent claiming to be a David Gray from TSB Bank. The OAP was told that his account had been compromised with suspicious activity that had been detected. Further calls over several weeks led to Mr. Thompson agreeing to set up 2 new accounts. Fiscal Juliana Keenan told the court, in the belief he was acting on instructions from the bank, Mr. Thompson transferred a total of £333,292 and 86 pence out of his bank account to these new accounts. The people who spoke to Mr. Thompson on the phone did not work for TSB Bank and have never been identified. The victim also went on to send the bank cards to James Hunt at the address of Asif's shop. One was used to make various purchases in the Glasgow area, which included £176,107 at Apple. The card also helped to make £42,766.64 of purchases from online retailer Chards, which deals in precious metals. Mr. Thompson was informed that he was to receive packages of gold and to send them on to the same shop in Uddingston. But on February the 20th, 2024, Mr. Thompson eventually suspected that he was the target of fraudsters and contacted the police. A probe revealed Asif to be a director of the shop. The store was raided and he was discovered there at the time. A black iPhone was found and there were texts regarding the sale of Apple phones and computers for large amounts. Miss Keenan added, "It is understood these products referred to in the messages were purchased with Mr. Thompson's card between January the 15th and February the 18th, 2024. The individual who made those purchases was not Mohammed Asif. Asif's phone also revealed that he had searched for gold bars and gold bullion online. The fiscal deputy stated that it is unknown who made the purchases of gold from Charles or who instructed Mr. Thompson to send them to Asif's shop. It is unknown what happened to the gold bullion once it reached the shop. Graham MacDonald, defending Asif, told the court that he facilitated the acts as a middleman. The advocate added, he has limited understanding about what went on and was not the brains of the operation. Asif's sons, Husni Mohammed and Amir Mohammed, 27, were also separately arrested. The family home in the city Shawlands where they lived had also been searched. Police discovered £35,135 of dirty money, £2,000 of cannabis and £1,180 of cocaine. The brothers joined their father in the dock. Both pleaded guilty to being in possession of criminal property. Hussein further admitted cannabis trafficking, with Amir involved with the cocaine. Asif was remanded in custody pending reports. The sons were bailed mealtime. That report was written by Connor Gordon and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 13th of January 2026, from the news section, sex predator raped woman in Glasgow Lane after meeting her in club, by court reporter Grant McCabe. A sex predator who raped a young woman he had just met in a nightclub has been locked up for 5 years. Oren O'Neill attacked his victim in Glasgow's Sauchiehall Lane on January the 20th, 2024. She had been drinking and on her own when the 20-year-old initially approached her in the club. They later left together, and there was consensual kissing outside in the street. O'Neill then took the young woman into the secluded lane. He had suggested they go somewhere private. The victim wanted to leave, but it was there. The attacker pushed her against a gate before eventually raping her. Jurors heard she bravely managed to shove O'Neill off, shouted that he had assaulted her and that she was going to the police. Despite what happened, he went back to the club to meet his friends. O'Neill of Hamilton, Lanarkshire, was convicted of the rape after a trial. He was sentenced at the High Court in Glasgow. Judge Scott Patterson told him the attack was opportunistic and, to some extent, predatory. He added O'Neill had acted deliberately in pursuit of a vulnerable young woman. The judge said he had read an impact statement from the victim, describing how she had been affected by her ordeal. He told O'Neill, "It is clear that this has had a long-term impact on her mental health, causing anxiety, trauma, and difficulties in her relationships. She has had to take time off work. She had injuries in the forms of cuts and bruises due to her falling in the lane. Your offending caused her psychological and physical harm." O'Neill was also to be supervised for a further 18 months on his release. He was further put on the sex offenders list indefinitely. That report was written by Grant McCabe and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 30th of January 2026, from the news section, verdict in against thug who murdered Brian Goff in Glasgow, by court reporter Grant McCabe. A thug has been convicted of the broad daylight murder of a man in an apparent revenge attack. Kevin Shanley stabbed to death Brian Goff, 27, in the doorway of a shop in Glasgow's Postle Park on May the 18th, 2024. The 37-year-old killer targeted Brian after the victim had punched his younger brother Kyle Shanley, 28, moments earlier. Kevin now faces a life sentence after he was found guilty of murder today. The trial at the High Court in Glasgow largely focused on harrowing CCTV footage of the crime, which was played to jurors. The brothers were initially captured standing in the area's Saracen Street that sunny Saturday afternoon. One of them waved over to Brian's girlfriend, who crossed the road and hugged each of the siblings. The victim, who was 6'6" and weighed 20 stone, was also with her. The court heard there was none of the hallmarks of hostility between any of them initially. It was not explained why, but Brian soon went on to punch Kyle Shanley. This was said to have taken him by surprise. Kyle then contacted his brother, while Brian and his girlfriend walked off into the nearby Saracen store. In his closing speech to jurors, prosecutor Colin Edwards said the siblings went on to leave a close in that street, clearly looking for Brian. Kyle was initially described as swiping at the victim with a knife after he left the shop. Brian pushed Kyle away as the man's girlfriend also tried to step in. Brian went back into the doorway of the shop. Kevin Shanley had, by this time, took the knife from his brother and went after the victim. The CCTV then captured the killer lunging at him before running off. Footage from inside the Saracen store saw Brian initially slumped at the counter before collapsing on the floor, his t-shirt covered in blood. He tragically never recovered after having struck in the heart. Brian passed away the next day in hospital. Advocate Deputy Mr. Edward had urged jurors to convict both brothers of the killing. He said Kevin was the one who had stabbed Brian, but that Kyle had acted in concert with his older sibling and that he had participated in a plan to use serious violence that day. Kyle was acquitted of the murder and instead found guilty of the heavily reduced charge of assaulting Brian by attempting to strike him with a knife. Judge Douglas Brown continued Kevin Shanley's remand as sentencing was adjourned for reports. He had only a couple of minor previous convictions for cannabis possession. Kyle had also been in custody since being charged in 2024. He was bailed today and will return to the dock with his brother in March. After the killing, Brian was described by those who knew him as popular and a nice big guy. One message at the scene stated, "A life too short, a grieving too long." That article was written by court reporter Grant McCabe and read by Ian McKenna.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. The Bearsden Community Hub is to reopen after more than 2 years. An article written by Gillian McPherson. A community hub is finally set to reopen more than 2 years after it was shut down due to the discovery of reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, or RAC. Bearsden Community Hub closed in October of 2023 after RAC was found in the roof structure at the rear of the building. RAC is a lightweight, bubbly form of concrete commonly used in construction, but it's much weaker than traditional concrete and is prone to structural failure. In July of 2024, Eastern Bartonshire Council, which runs the facility, confirmed that the roof at the back of the hub would need to be replaced in full. The council announced today that work to remove the RAC is now complete and the hub will reopen on Monday, March the 16th. A spokesperson for the council said, "We thank you for your patience and we look forward to welcoming you back to Bearsden Community Hub." An article written by Gillian McPherson. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. New ASN-staffed cafe officially opens its doors. An exclusive article written by Emily Moore. Western Bartonshire's newest cafe, which aims to give people with additional support needs a place of employment, opened at the weekend. Spectrum Coffee welcomed its first customers on Saturday after a year of hard work, sweat and tears, bringing the social enterprise to life. Founder and mum Angie Davis said that when her son Jack left school, he struggled to find his next destination. Angie said, "Jack went to an ASN-specific school, and after a transition meeting about his future, my husband and I were driving home, and I just ranted the whole way back about the lack of services, the lack of provisions, and just that it wasn't okay. I just felt very let down, and that his options were nowhere near what any neurotypical person would be. When we got home, my husband turned round to me and said, 'Well, what are we going to do about it?' And Spectrum Coffee was born." The cafe will be tailored to the needs of employees with additional support needs, giving them an opportunity to learn new skills, meet more people, and the chance to have a job. After the dream became real for Angie, she set up a social enterprise and then began fundraising for the cafe. The response from the community, she says, was overwhelming. She said, "My husband and I started this with empty pockets, but a head and a heart full of dreams and ambition. As soon as I announced it on social media, it just absolutely took off, and the local community has been great with getting behind this. We've done a crowdfunder to kickstart the funds, and that was really well received." However, after posting job applications online, Angie received more than 50 applications in the first 24 hours. Despite wishing that she could give every applicant a role, Angie had to whittle it down, and of the interviews she undertook, many told her that they had not been given a chance like this before. Angie says that this highlights how important offering services and schemes like Spectrum Coffee is. She added, "I think it really hit home just how needed something like this is when I posted about a job advert last week. Some of the young people that we interviewed were just saying that they weren't even given a chance. Or if they were getting through to being interviewed, they weren't hearing back at all. I feel like we've got a really good team behind us, and everybody is just really buzzing for the fact that it's like a new business, and they're buzzing for the social mission behind it." Spectrum Coffee is located at Unit 19 of the Vale of Leven Industrial Estate in Dumbarton. An exclusive article written by Emily Moore. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. 4 Britons died after Cape Verde stomach bugs. An article issued by the Press Association. 4 British people have died within 4 months after being struck down with stomach bugs while on holiday in Cape Verde, lawyers representing their families have said. Elena Walsh, 64, from Birmingham, Mark Ashley, 55, of Bedfordshire, 64-year-old Karen Pooley from Gloucestershire, and a 56-year-old man all died last year after contracting severe gastric illnesses whilst on the islands off the coast of West Africa. They are 4 of 6 Britons who have died after holidays there since January of 2023, and law firm Irwin Mitchell said that investigations into the deaths are ongoing. Mr. Ashley's wife Emma said that her family is in complete shock over his death. "We went to Cape Verde expecting a relaxing break, but Mark became violently ill and never recovered," she said. 3 days into their holiday in October, Mr. Ashley, a self-employed forklift truck driver, fell ill with symptoms including stomach pain, diarrhoea, vomiting, fever and extreme lethargy, Irwin Mitchell said. The firm said that it's representing the families of the 6 people who have died and more than 1,500 people who have fallen ill after visits to the country. Mr. Ashley's wife, an early years assistant manager, said that they booked their more than £3,000 trip with TUI and said that she reported her husband's illness on its app on the 9th of October last year. She said that she and her husband, who had been married for 26 years, stayed at the 5-star Rio Palace Santa Maria resort on the island of Sal. She said that she has raised concerns over the hygiene standards at the hotel. On their return to the UK, father of 2, Mr. Ashley's symptoms continued for some time, his wife said. After collapsing at home, Mr. Ashley, who had diabetes which was controlled through medication, was taken to hospital on the 12th of November but was pronounced dead minutes later. His death has been referred to the coroner and investigations are continuing, Irwin Mitchell said. Part-time nurse and mother of 1, Ms. Walsh, died in August last year after falling ill while staying at the Rio Cabo Verde resort on the same island. Ms. Pooley from Lydney in Gloucestershire travelled with a friend to the Rio Funana resort on Sal on the 7th of October last year for a fortnight's holiday costing £3,000 and booked through TUI, the law firm said. The retired mother of 2 became sick on the 11th of October with gastric symptoms including diarrhoea, and in the early hours of the next day she slipped on water leaking from a fridge whilst going to the bathroom. She was transferred to a local clinic, and over the next 4 days, Ms. Pooley continued to experience diarrhoea and vomiting, alongside severe pain from her fractured femur. The 64-year-old was airlifted to Tenerife for urgent care on the 16th of October and died in the early hours of the next day, lawyers said. Her husband Andy said, "We're utterly heartbroken. Karen was the kindest, loveliest person. She was a devoted wife and mum who loved swimming, walking the dog in the Forest of Dean, and volunteered at a local charity shop. She was also a wonderful friend who lit up every room she entered." He says his wife appeared to be in significant distress when the family video called her from home, and claims that communication from the clinic and their holiday provider was poor. "We were desperate for updates while watching Karen get worse," he said. "We're devastated and struggling to understand how she went on holiday and never came home." Erwin Mitchell said that Ms Pooley's initial death certificate, issued by the Cape Verde authorities, said that she died of multi-organ failure, sepsis, cardiorespiratory arrest, and a broken left leg. The other two Britons who have died since 2023 are Jane Presley of Gainsborough, who died in January of that year after falling ill whilst holidaying at the Rio Palace Hotel in Santa Maria on Sal the previous November, and a man in his 60s from Watford. He died in November of 2024 after suffering gastric illness following a trip to Cape Verde, Erwin Mitchell said. Families of all 6 people are making personal injury claims for damages against TUI, the provider of many package holidays to the island country. Jatinder Paul, a serious injury lawyer at the firm, said, "The number of holidaymakers to Cape Verde being struck down with serious and debilitating gastric illnesses is truly staggering. Nothing brings the gravity of this situation into sharper focus than these recent deaths. In my experience, I'm used to supporting holidaymakers who've fallen ill at resorts across the globe, but I've never seen repeated and continued illness outbreaks at the same resorts on such a scale over such a period of time. It's almost incomprehensible that holidaymakers continue to describe the hygiene issues at these Cape Verde hotels year after year. Each case isn't a statistic, it's a human story of how lives have been turned upside down. Understandably, those we represent have serious concerns about hygiene standards on Cape Verde. While nothing can make up for what's happened, we're determined to at least help establish the answers that they deserve. In the meantime, we call for meaningful and decisive action to get on top of the reported hygiene issues on the islands. Tour operators are responsible for ensuring the safety of those who have booked all-inclusive package holidays. Therefore, we urge them to work with the authorities to ensure that the highest hygiene and safety standards are always upheld. TUI has been contacted for comment. An article issued by the Press Association. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. An MP calls for an effective crackdown on e-bikes. An exclusive article written by Nicole Mitchell. An MP is calling for the Scottish Government to bring in better regulation for tackling dangerous e-bike use. John Grady, MP, who represents Glasgow East, says that police are having to enforce current laws with one hand tied behind their backs. It comes after concerns were raised by members of the Merchant City and Trongate Community Council about frequent examples of dangerous driving by people on e-bikes, particularly on pedestrianised streets. Mr Grady told the Glasgow Times, "My constituents regularly tell me of their concerns about dangerous e-bike use in the city centre. Although there are already clear laws in place about e-bike use, the SNP has failed to give Police Scotland the proper resources needed to tackle the problem. Without proper support from the Scottish Government, officers are enforcing these laws with one hand tied behind their backs. The UK Government's road safety strategy will improve road safety for all by introducing a national work-related road safety charter, working with businesses to get to grips with the issue of illegal e-bike use. I also welcome the UK Government's commitment to go further and to consider regulations if work-related road risk is not improved through this charter. The UK Government is stepping up to make our streets safer. The Scottish Government must now do the same." Currently, e-bikes, which are often used by delivery cyclists, can be ridden anywhere a person is permitted to ride a regular bike, including roads, cycle lanes and bridle paths, and they can be ridden on pavements that are designated for mixed cycle and pedestrian use. A legal e-bike must have its electric motor assistance cut off at 15.5 miles an hour. Mr Grady has also written to Lillian Greenwood MP, the Minister for Local Transport, about the identification and regulation of e-bike use in the UK. In his letter, Mr Grady says he has been informed that despite incidents where injuries have occurred being reported to police, without identification of the vehicle or its rider, they've not been able to find those responsible. Mr Grady says that he's in support of the government's road safety strategy, which has a stated aim to reduce work-related road risk and to improve safety for all road users, and has asked for an outline of the regulation that the Department for Transport would consider introducing, including any measures involving a registration process for e-bikes if work-related road risk is not reduced. A spokesperson for the Merchant City and Trongate Community Council said that they are pleased to hear that the UK government is strengthening the powers available to police. They said, "We're grateful to our MP for taking up with the UK government our residents' concerns about the dangers to pedestrians and road users caused by food delivery cyclists riding at excessive speeds." The Community Council has long suggested that such riders should wear identifiable tags or bags, allowing them to be traced in the event of an accident. Although there's been no tangible progress on this particular demand, it's gratifying that the UK government is strengthening powers available to police to deal with such bikes being ridden in an antisocial manner. We also welcome the pilot road safety charter for businesses which employ delivery riders. The Glasgow Times previously reported that residents living in the city centre have been calling for a crackdown on e-bikes for several years. In a meeting held in Garnet Hill in August of 2023, residents spoke about experiencing near misses with bikes, with some saying that they now avoid Sauchiehall Street as they don't feel safe walking in the street. Following discussions, residents also caused for e-bikes to be classified as motorised vehicles and for the bikes to have registration plates. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, "We understand the concerns around the misuse of e-bikes and are engaging with the UK Government, which holds powers over off-road vehicles, including licensing, to explore what further action may be taken." Ministers and officials regularly meet with Police Scotland and partners and are committed to supporting them to tackle these issues. That includes providing record funding of £1.7 billion in 2026 to 2027 to enhance its response. A Department for Transport spokesperson said, "The safety of all road users and pedestrians is vital, which is why there are already strict regulations for e-bikes which ban their use on pavements. We're going even further by updating old legislation to introduce new offences and penalties for dangerous cycling, ensuring that those who recklessly disregard others face the full force of the law." An exclusive article written by Nicole Mitchell. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. Glasgow's Catholic Archbishop is criticised over a failure in care. An article written by Kevin McKenna. A Catholic parish has lodged an official complaint with the Church over the conduct of the Archbishop of Glasgow, William Nolan. The move, thought to be unprecedented in recent times, follows a bitter dispute between members at St Albert's in Pollokshields and Archbishop Nolan about plans to shut down their church and parish. The detailed 2,000-word complaint lists a multitude of grievances, including the Archbishop's alleged failures to make proper arrangements for the pastoral care of the parishioners at St Albert the Great, following his decision to withdraw Sunday Mass provision from this Sunday onwards, our sister title The Herald reports. It was reported last year that the parishioners had appealed to Pope Leo XIV about the decision to close both the church and the parish. They claimed that the consultation process that they'd been promised never took place. They described a planned merger with another Southside parish as not a merger at all, but an extinctive union, which would have removed their 60-year-old parish in its entirety. The Vatican partially upheld part of that appeal and is currently considering the parishioners' further entreaty about the closure. They're also seeking answers about the transfer of £116,000 in parish funds to another parish and the refusal to provide details of several subsequent transactions. Parishioners were left dismayed last weekend that Archbishop Nolan hadn't attended the last ever Sunday Mass at St Albert's. It's difficult to think of a more casual and neglectful approach to pastoral care than that Your Grace and our parish priest left that solemn and important moment to be led by a visiting supply priest with little knowledge of our parish. The parishioners have claimed that a harsh authoritarianism is evident in the process to dismantle their parish. The complaint adds, in a parish where for many years parishioners readily and ably stepped up in parish arrangements, we have been subject to an excessive and overbearing clericalism in the smallest details of parish arrangements. They described this as a failure in care, adding that it had caused a scandal wider than our own parish. The latest development comes as parishioners in 2 other Glasgow churches have raised similar concerns about their treatment by the Archdiocese. Our Holy Redeemer in Clydebank has raised a petition on change.org seeking to pause a proposed merger with the neighbouring St Margaret's. An article written by Kevin McKenna. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. Diabetic patients are selling devices illegally online. An exclusive front page article written by Amanda Keenan. Patients are selling expensive medical equipment used to control their diabetes illegally online. An investigation by the Glasgow Times has revealed that people are pocketing cash by asking for extra Freestyle Libre 2 sensors to be prescribed from GP practices, before then listing them on Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree for up to £50 each. The sensors work by constantly monitoring a user's blood sugar and sending these readings to their mobile phone. It means that diabetics can see at a glance where their levels are, preventing hypos or their sugars from reaching dangerously high levels, which can cause damage to eyes and other organs. Each sensor lasts for 15 days, but often needs to be replaced early because the glue used to affix them to the arm can be compromised in hot showers or baths. Patients also complain that the devices can come off easily after becoming caught in clothing or drop off during exercise sessions, which are viewed as vital by clinicians to keep diabetes under control. One medical source at a GP practice in the south of the city told the Glasgow Times that they're now being more careful when dealing with patient requests for extra supplies. They said, "We need to be sure now that the numbers we're giving patients are correct and strictly for their own personal use. These measures are to combat people abusing the system. In theory, 4 sensors should cover 2 months, but it obviously isn't that simple as electronics fail and people sometimes need more if they fall off. To sign this off now, we need to make a call to the person and go through a checklist of questions to satisfy ourselves that the request is genuine, and we can evidence that. We're being told to tell patients that they should secure the sensors using a bandage or plaster to keep them on, and if there's any issues to now contact the manufacturer for a replacement, as opposed to coming to us." A search on Gumtree and on Facebook Marketplace showed a number of sensors currently for sale across Glasgow and surrounding areas. Patients are also able to order from sellers across England, with devices available for posting or courier from places as far afield as London. One patient, who is 38 and lives in the East End of the city, contacted the Glasgow Times about the matter. She's been type 1 diabetic since the age of 17 and says that the sensors, which she was approved for in 2023, have made a massive difference to her ability to manage her symptoms. She said, "These have been a game changer since I was given them. They're very difficult to get through the NHS as they need to be signed off by a senior consultant. This creates a demand for the sensors on these marketplace websites, and it looks as though some patients have seen an opportunity and are trying to cash in." We spoke to another man from Cardonald on the south side who told us that he'd previously purchased batches of the Libre sensors from sellers in both Glasgow and Paisley via Facebook. The 41-year-old, who was diagnosed as type 1 in 2022, turned to the online sellers after being refused the kit on prescription. He said, "I'm in a few support groups and people had spoken about how great these were. Right now, I need to monitor my blood glucose levels by pricking my fingers 3 or 4 times a day, which is hard going. I went and asked about getting these through the NHS, and I was told that I wouldn't qualify as the criteria is quite strict and it needs a consultant to sign it off. Basically, my understanding is that you need to have complications, like diabetic retinopathy or something similar that relies on you having really tight control on your levels before you can get these via the NHS. I get that because they are expensive, but it only means that people like me will try and source them via cheap websites or unreliable places online, where the prices are much lower. The focus seems to be on giving the sensors to younger patients to stop them developing problems down the line. It's the same with insulin pumps. It's a fight to get one of these approved if you're older, and that is also down to cost. The Freestyle 2 Libre sensors can be purchased online from officially approved medical retailers, but they're only commonly given on the NHS to younger patients, those with advanced type 1 diabetes or those with complications around their condition. A spokesperson for the Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board said that strict guidelines are in place to make sure that every prescription is used solely for the matter that it's intended. They added, Health Board guidance is that a maximum of 25 sensors should be prescribed per patient per year, and that no more than 2 to 4 sensors should be prescribed at any one time. There's been no recent change to this advice. The guidance also advises that while specialists and GP cannot issue prescriptions to replace defective sensors, patients can obtain a replacement by calling the Abbott customer care line. An exclusive front-page article written by Amanda Keenan. Glasgow Times on Monday the 2nd of February. Lifestyle. Inside the niche Glasgow bookstore, hailed as one of the world's best. An exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael. Burning House Books, based on Glasgow's Cathcart Road, is like coming home to an extraordinary and cosy library. With a small yet mighty collection, the shop's shelves are filled with queer novels, timeless classics and photography books, alongside beautiful art pieces and stationery for sale. As an avid reader and book browsing enthusiast, it's rare to enter a bookstore and discover titles and authors that you've never heard of. But Burning House Books promises you new encounters on every visit, and that was exactly what owner Amy Ballinger wanted. I wanted a niche collection because I don't want people to know what they want when they walk in here, Amy told the Glasgow Times. She added, I want people to find something that they may have heard of at one time but have never come across in a bookshop, or be able to purchase a book that was hard to find online. If anyone needs or wants a certain book, they could go to Amazon, for example, and I don't want just to have it delivered to my door. That alienates people from the human experience, and I don't want to live in a world without independent bookshops. The bookstore was recently named by Cultured as one of the finest independent bookshops in the world. The list, compiled by indie bookstore owners for the Los Angeles and Miami-based independent print and digital magazine, saw Burning House Books recommended by Linda McIntosh of Ripe Mags in Glasgow. The store joined shops like Librairie des Femmes in Paris, Neurotica Books in Los Angeles, and Dashwood Books in New York. Speaking on the incredible accolade, Amy, who hails from Stroud in England, said, That was nuts. Linda is a friend of mine and she's amazing. To be recommended by someone like her, who has such a great collection of literature and is really at the top of her game, that is great. She continued, It was a pleasant surprise, and it was so nice to see more people coming in off the back of the list being published. I'm not sure I agree with it, she added jokingly. I'm so into bookshops, and I can name so many off the top of my head that I love. But this bookshop is my life. I've worked on this business for 10 years. Named after the burning house motif used frequently in David Vodjanovich's artwork, the store, which opened in the Govan Hill space in 2021, has gone through many different forms. Having studied English at university in Cornwall, Amy was introduced to American authors, performative artists and queer literature for the very first time. Knowing that she wanted to work with books in some way afterwards, Amy moved to London in 2012 and worked for a publishing house as an unpaid intern, amongst other jobs. She eventually decided to move back to Cornwall after about 11 months in London and started to publish poetry anthologies with her best friends. The group put on reading nights and Amy started to sell books whilst working in cafes. She then attended print fairs in Belgium, where two of her friends lived, selling books at a stall as well as online, which she loved. Amy eventually decided that she wanted to move to Glasgow. Having always wanted to live in Scotland, she started selling books at markets again and hosted a pop-up at Glasgow's Good Press. Saving up as much money as possible, she was able to open a little studio in the city's West End to sell books. Amy said, "I opened it 3 days a week and it worked. I decided to find a place in the South Side because it was the only place I've ever lived in Glasgow and I love it so much. It is home. I found this space, which used to be a washing machine repair shop. I found it on the last page of Gumtree. I rang the letting agents and said that I wanted to rent the property for a bookshop, and they told me that it was never going to get customers, but I knew I wanted to try." But for Amy, Burning House Books was never just about selling literature. She explained, "I can talk to people for hours, and I've had people come into the shop from all over the world and sit here all day just drinking tea and talking about books. I've even had older guys coming in who live across the road, and I've ordered in books for them. I gather that this street used to be really busy, and it seems that some of the locals miss having somewhere that they can just come into to gather and to chat. They seem happy to see a place open up that engages with the community." She added, "I want people to know that Burning House Books is not an intimidating space. I don't believe that art and literature should be reserved for the middle or upper classes. It's for everyone." The store also hosts a range of events, such as book launches and writing workshop events, which Amy plans to do more of this year, as Burning House Books turns 10 years old. An exclusive article written by Morgan Carmichael. Glasgow Times on Monday the 2nd of February. Lifestyle. Palestine activists hit out at the CCA board after the centre goes bust. An article written by Josh Pitsuto-Pomako. Activists have criticised the management of Glasgow's Centre for Contemporary Arts after the charity behind the much-loved venue went bust. The CCA board had drawn the ire of pro-Palestine campaigners after declining to endorse a full boycott of Israel over the conflict in Gaza. The troubled art centre closed for 2 months last summer after police were called to a group of protesters who had occupied the building. Reacting to the news of the closure on Sunday, the Art Workers for Palestine Scotland group said that they were deeply concerned for workers who had lost their jobs. A statement posted to Instagram read, "It's deeply unsettling to hear the decision being taken without a public consultation. This would have led to solutions generated by the sector and by the many cultural tenants, festivals, community groups and small businesses who love and care about the CCA. We'll be speaking to colleagues across the sector to work as part of a broad campaign in the coming days to fight the redundancies and campaign to reopen our beloved CCA." The group has also hit back at right-wing attacks, which pinned the closure on their protests. They noted, "It was not our demands and our campaign that closed this. It was years of mismanagement and ethical rot and a final destructive act by the board. We did not provoke the CCA to deploy police violence on its own communities last June, when we planned to use the public courtyard of the building for a programme of learning, creativity and solidarity with Palestine." 39 staff members, plus contractors and freelancers, lost their jobs when the Art Centre closed its doors last Friday. Creative Scotland, which announced £3.4 million worth of support last year, said that it was no longer able to release funding as the CCA had been unable to demonstrate its ongoing viability. In a statement, the CCA board said, over the past 18 months, the CCA has undertaken a structured recovery process to address significant financial challenges. Despite the efforts of staff, partners and the broader community, the organisation was unable to achieve a sustainable financial position. The CCA extends its appreciation to its team, audiences, artists and collaborators for their long-standing commitment, creativity and support. An article written by Josh Pitsuto-Pomoko. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 2nd of February. Scottish teachers ballot for strike action over failed government promises. An article written by Amy Miles. A fresh ballot could take Scottish teachers a step closer to the picket line. Scotland's largest teaching union, the Educational Institute of Scotland, or EIS, has issued ballot papers to members renewing its dispute over unaddressed workload concerns and unmet government commitments. The renewed ballot comes almost a year after the Scottish Government and council employers were due to implement agreed measures, including reducing classroom contact hours and improving recruitment. An earlier strike ballot failed to secure a legal mandate due to a low turnout. Although 85.9% of those who voted supported industrial action, less than 47% of the overall EIS membership participated, falling short of the UK's legally required threshold. EIS General Secretary Andrea Bradley described the thresholds as excessively strict and said that the legislation is set to be repealed by Westminster, but in the meantime it's calling on members to take part in the current vote. She said teachers have been waiting 5 long years for the Scottish Government and local authorities to deliver promised actions to reduce teacher workload and to create more jobs for qualified teachers. This ballot is an important opportunity, especially as we approach the next election, for teachers to hold the politicians to account and to compel them to act on delivering their promises to Scotland's teachers and Scottish education. She criticised both the Scottish Government and the council umbrella body COSLA for failing to act. She continued, "We're precisely 1 day short of a full year since, in the face of growing discontent by teachers, the Scottish Government and COSLA were due to deliver a firm set of proposals on the delivery of the promises made to teachers." Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth has argued that negotiation remains preferable to industrial action. She said, "The outcome of the original ballot showed that EIS members see discussions rather than industrial action as the best way of reaching agreement on reducing class contact time. Regardless of the outcome of these ballots, we hope that these discussions will continue to reach an agreed position on how to free up teacher time so that we can focus on reducing workload and improve educational outcomes for children. People getting around the table is the way to resolve matters and reach a common agreement." COSLA expressed disappointment at the renewed strike threat. Ricky Bell, COSLA's resources spokesperson, said, "It's disappointing that the EIS continues to seek a mandate for strike action, which will disrupt learning at a crucial time of year." He emphasised that class contact time reductions are a Scottish Government pledge and not a local authority one, and warned of significant financial implications. He said, "COSLA has been working in good faith with the teaching unions and the Scottish Government on this for some time, with a commitment to making meaningful progress. Throughout this, we have been pragmatic and sought to develop potential routes to implementation which take into consideration the impact of reducing teachers' contact time on pupil learning and on public finances." COSLA estimates that the change could cost between £250 million and £310 million per year. Mr Bell said it must be recognised that this would come at a cost to already hard-up councils, which can only be met by the Scottish Government. He added that COSLA remains committed to working constructively with all parties to reach a workable solution. An article written by Amy Miles.
From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 3rd of February 2026. From the Lifestyle section. Tickets to go on sale for the first WOMAD festival in Glasgow, and this article was written by Beth Oliver. Tickets are set to go on sale for a global music and arts festival coming to Glasgow this summer. The first ever WOMAD, World of Music, Arts and Dance, will take place in Scotland for the first time on July the 3rd and 4th at Kelvingrove Park, promising 2 days of international music, arts and cultural celebration. Tickets for the hotly anticipated festival will go on general sale on the WOMAD Glasgow, a World of Music and Dance web page from 10 a.m. on Friday. Billy Garrett, Director of Culture, Tourism and Events at Glasgow Life, said, "Glasgow is famed the world over as a hotspot of culture with a vibrant and diverse live music scene, and WOMAD's decision to bring its internationally renowned festival to our city is a shining example of this. Music lovers will have a historic opportunity when tickets go on sale to be among the crowds at the first ever WOMAD Glasgow event, which promises 2 days of thrilling musical and artistic entertainment from all across the globe. WOMAD Glasgow will feature performances from established and emerging artists across 3 stages. It will cover genres from folk and jazz to hip-hop, pop, dance and more. WOMAD Glasgow also offers free workshops led by international musicians and dancers, live culinary demonstrations, wellness activities, and a series of World of Words talks to immerse festival goers in global heritage. The event is organised by WOMAD International in partnership with Glasgow Life and Celtic Connections. Chris Smith, Director of WOMAD, said, "We are so excited about WOMAD's first visit to Scotland and to Glasgow, a festival and a city that fit hand in glove, a match that lives and breathes culture, music and creativity together. It's about community, a strong beating heart that reminds us of the joy and connection that can be found through music and the arts, regardless of race or place, one that feels all the more essential in today's world. See you in July." And that article was written by Beth Oliver. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, from the news section. Large fire engulfs Celtic supporters club in Irvine shopping centre. And this article was written by Aidan Maxwell. A blaze tears through Celtic supporters club as Irvine shopping centre shuts. A major fire has torn through a Celtic supporters club in Ayrshire, forcing the closure of a neighbouring shopping centre and prompting a large-scale emergency response. The blaze broke out late on Monday night at the former Forum shopping centre on West Road in Irvine. The largely disused building is connected to the Rivergate shopping centre, which has been shut this morning because of the incident. The Irvine No. 1 Celtic Supporters Club is based within the Forum complex. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service was alerted at around 11:30 p.m. on Monday, February the 2nd, and dispatched multiple crews to the scene. 6 fire engines and 2 high-reach appliances were initially deployed as firefighters tackled the flames. By 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the response had been reduced to 3 appliances as the fire eased, though crews remain on site. Dramatic images from the scene shows flames ripping through the roof of the supporters club, which appears to have partially collapsed. Emergency services have advised members of the public to stay away from the area while operations continue. No injuries have been reported. A local resident told the Daily Record, "Some people were worried it was a gas explosion, but were reassured it was okay. We debated whether it was deliberate too. We were more worried on how they were going to get in and control fire, or the big mall would be affected. In a statement issued on Tuesday morning, Rivergate Shopping Centre confirmed it would remain closed, saying, "There is currently no access through the Rivergate and all stores will remain closed at the moment, with the exception of the Asda and outside Greggs unit, who will be able to open as normal. If you usually walk through the centre to reach the train station or nearby offices, please find an alternative route this morning. Emergency services are on site and the centre will reopen when it is safe to do so. We thank you for your patience and cooperation. We will provide an update as soon as we have more information regarding reopening." A spokesperson for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service said, "We received the first call at 23:34 last night, which came in as a building fire at the Celtic Supporters Club. We mobilised 2 appliances, which was increased to 6 appliances and 2 high-reach appliances. We have since scaled back to 3 appliances and a watching brief has been taking place since 8 a.m. No casualties have been reported. Police Scotland has also been contacted for comment." And that article was written by Aidan Maxwell. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, from the news section. Man hospitalised following assault on Cathedral Street in Glasgow. And this article was written by Aidan Maxwell. A man was rushed to hospital after being assaulted on a busy street in the city centre. Police Scotland confirmed they received reports of an assault on Cathedral Street, Glasgow at around 8:35 p.m. on Monday, February the 2nd. Emergency services raced to the scene and a man was taken to Glasgow Royal Infirmary for treatment. Inquiries remain ongoing into the incident. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, around 8:35 p.m. on Monday, February the 2nd, 2026, we received a report of a man being assaulted on Cathedral Street, Glasgow. He was taken to Glasgow Royal Infirmary for treatment. Inquiries are ongoing. The Scottish Ambulance Service has been approached for comment. And that article was written by Aidan Maxwell, read by me, Caroline. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, from the news section. Properties evacuated as unsafe building forces Hamilton Road closure. And this article was written by Aidan Maxwell. Emergency services are responding to an incident involving an unsafe building in Hamilton, with multiple properties evacuated and a key town centre road closed. Police were alerted in the early hours of Tuesday morning, prompting a precautionary response on Quarry Street. Residents have been moved out of nearby properties while safety assessments are carried out, and the public is being urged to avoid the area due to ongoing disruption. Police Scotland Lanarkshire said, around 12:40 a.m. on Tuesday, February the 3rd, 2026, we received a report of an unsafe building on Quarry Street, Hamilton. A number of properties have been evacuated as a precaution. The road is closed and members of the public are being advised to avoid the area. Traffic restrictions remain in place with diversion routes set up across the town. South Lanarkshire Council confirmed road closures and alternative routes in a statement shared on X, saying, in Hamilton, Quarry Street between Low Waters Road and Graham Street is closed due to an unsafe building. Southbound diversion via Gateside Street, Portland Place, Burnbley Street, Dixon Street, Bent Road and Quarry Street. northbound via Quarry Street, Brandon Street, Union Street, Auchencampbell Street, Bent Road and Quarry Street. South Lanarkshire Council has been approached for comment, and this article was written by Aidan Maxwell.
This is from the Glasgow Times on the 4th of February 2026 from the news section, and the headline reads: Celtic FCA club fire in Irvine Rivergate Centre started deliberately. This article is by Amy Miles. A fire that tore through a Celtic supporters club and nearby shopping centre was started deliberately, according to cops. The blaze broke out in North Ayrshire in the Forum building near the Rivergate shopping centre in Irvine on Monday night, causing extensive damage. A Celtic supporters club is located within the Forum building, which was badly damaged in the fire. The roof of the building was destroyed, and many shops within the Rivergate Centre remained closed on Tuesday as a result. 6 fire engines and 2 specialist-type vehicles were sent to the scene to tackle the flames. Shocking footage showed the moment the mostly unused site was engulfed by the blaze. Police have now revealed they believe the fire was started deliberately. Chief Inspector Judith McGregor, local commander for North Ayrshire, said, "We were called to a report of a fire at premises on West Road, Irvine, around 11:50 p.m. on Monday, February 2nd, 2026. Emergency services remain in attendance, but no injuries have been reported. The fire is being treated as willful, and inquiries are ongoing. We'd like to thank our emergency partners for their ongoing efforts, and the public for their patience." This article was by Amy Miles. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 4th of February 2026 from the news section, and the headline reads: Glasgow man told to calm down by GP before rare cancer diagnosis. This article is by Aidan Maxwell. A Glasgow father has spoken of being told to go home and calm down after years of GP appointments before doctors finally discovered he had an invisible cancer. Craig Spears, 46, from Glasgow, said it took 5 years of repeated visits to his GP before he was diagnosed with neuroendocrine cancer in 2013. The father of 2 has neuroendocrine cancer of the small bowel, which has spread to his liver and caused heart problems. These visits didn't get me anywhere, and I was even told there was nothing wrong with me, and that I had to go home and calm down, as it was a result of stress from work, Spears said. My cancer was invisible to the doctor. His experience is echoed by thousands of patients across the UK, according to Neuroendocrine Cancer UK, NCUK, which has warned that people with the condition are being repeatedly misdiagnosed and turned away by doctors. The charity said there is an urgent need to speed up diagnosis of neuroendocrine cancer, which affects more than 6,000 people a year in England and can develop in areas including the bowel, pancreas, stomach and lungs. Analysis by NCUK suggests rates of the disease rose by 371% between 1995 and 2018, compared to 116% for other cancers in the same period, excluding non-melanoma skin cancer. Diagnosis takes an average of 4.5 years, with almost half of patients not diagnosed at their first referral, and 16% returning more than 10 times before receiving answers. More than half of cases are diagnosed at an advanced stage. Symptoms can include unexplained weight loss, fatigue, pain, diarrhea, bloating, heartburn, asthma-like symptoms, flushing rashes, and a persistent cough. Common misdiagnoses include irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, and menopause. Lisa Walker, Chief Executive of NCUK, said, "A key part of the challenge of neuroendocrine cancer is that it doesn't align with the common cancer narrative many expect. It doesn't act or look like more known cancers, and unlike others, isn't always about recovery or decline. It often requires people to live with it for many years. That's why we need a conversation that reflects the reality of the condition. Delays to diagnosis and inconsistent care cause serious and lasting harm. Precious time is lost, allowing the cancer to progress before people receive the treatment they need." Patients and families describe these experiences as isolating and frightening, leaving them without support when they need it most. This is unacceptable and requires urgent attention. Professor Raj Sirajaskanthan, a consultant gastroenterologist at King's College Hospital, said that many patients share similar experiences to Spears. In my years as an NET clinician, I have sat across from thousands of patients, and, while every story is unique, they often share a hauntingly similar prologue. A large number have undergone a long and circuitous journey to their diagnosis, commonly being misdiagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, asthma, or menopause. This period of not knowing is often marked by a sense of being unheard, as patients struggle to reconcile their debilitating symptoms with normal test results. Sarah Jaskinthan added that managing neuroendocrine tumours is often a marathon, not a sprint. Many of my patients have been undergoing treatment for more than a decade, he said. Martin Kaplan, Professor of Gastroenterology and Neuroendocrine Cancer at the Royal Free Hospital, said earlier diagnosis can significantly affect outcomes. Smaller volumes of neuroendocrine cancer are generally easier to manage than a more advanced disease, and larger tumours are more likely to cause significant symptoms, regardless of where they are in the body, he said. Delays increase both physical and emotional toll on patients and limit clinical options. This article was by Aidan Maxwell. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 4th of February 2026, from the news section, and the headline reads, People freezing in Paisley homes due to ongoing heating saga. This article is by Jack Thompson. People have been freezing in their own homes in Paisley because of problems with a heating and hot water system, an elected member has claimed. Issues have arisen with a biomass boiler system, which serves homes in the Calside area, sparking an influx of complaints from exasperated residents. That's according to Councillor Eddie Devine, a representative for Paisley South East, who's been inundated with correspondence over the saga. However, the veteran politician is hopeful of a breakthrough after Renfrewshire Council sent out a letter providing an update on work that is currently underway to address the situation. Councillor Devine said, It's been hectic over the winter period, with people's complaints about not getting heating and hot water, but finally, they may be getting to the end of the road where they're going to get heating and hot water at what is obviously a cold time of the year. Whoever's been doing the work has now noticed we should maybe be putting in new pipework instead of leaving the old pipework in, so it looks as if it's going to be renewed. I understand it's going to be costly. I'm not happy that it's taken so long to get an answer to what people have been complaining about for 2 to 3 years, but now hopefully they get what they need. I'll be chasing it up to make sure this is the last winter they have to sit freezing in their own homes with their coats on. It's not good enough. The Biomass Energy Centre, which has supplied heat to 461 homes since 2015, serves the 4 multi-storey blocks at Hamilton Court, Rowan Court, Calside Court and Union Court, and the Maisonette blocks at Calside and Alice Street. It's understood the system is maintained by an external specialist contractor that carries out planned servicing and reactive repairs to the centre and individual properties. A council spokesperson said, We're committed to ensuring residents receive a reliable and efficient heating service, following routine monitoring of the biomass system, which serves homes in the Calside area. An increase in issues with pipework in common areas was identified. Following initial repairs and further investigation, it was determined that, in some cases, full pipework replacement would offer a more effective long-term solution for residents. Work is currently underway to procure a comprehensive replacement for the affected pipework, which will be delivered in 2026. In the meantime, we are maintaining heating and hot water supplies by replacing pipework where necessary. We have and will continue to be in regular contact with residents to update them on the situation and make them aware of the support available, including the provision of alternative heating and financial contribution where heating has been unavailable for more than 24 hours. This article is by Jack Thompson.
From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday, the 4th of February 2026. Clydebank's Titan crane not to be repaired due to high cost. An exclusive article by Emily Moore. There are no plans to repair and reopen the Titan crane, it has been revealed, The Clydebank landmark closed in January 2018 as a temporary shutdown to allow for maintenance work with the option to explore ways to improve visitors' experience at the attraction. However, 8 years later, it is understood that there are no confirmed plans to proceed with the extensive repair work. A financial statement published on December 30th, 2025 by Clydebank Property Company, CPC, has recorded a net loss of £0.6 million and has confirmed that there are no plans due to cost association with the repair work being high. CPC is owned by Western Bartonshire Council after the authority purchased the assets of the former Clydebank Rebuilt organisation in 2014, with 3 council officers currently appointed as directors. Included in the sale was the 150-foot Titan crane. In 2021, it was revealed that CPC has never made a sufficient amount of money to cover up its running cost, which currently stands at £234,000. In addition, it was noted that the income from visitors to the crane has never been enough to cover the attraction's running cost. Despite this, an announcement was made the same year that by spring of 2022, the structure would reopen to the public following essential work. However, this never happened. At the end of March of 2022, an inspection of the Titan crane structure established the need for a further and more extensive programme of maintenance works to the crane. For this reason, plans to reopen the site during 2022 were then paused. Over the course of the next 3 years, regular updates from CPC inform of the continued closure whilst the Queen's Quay development remained ongoing and due to extensive programme of work required. Whilst efforts were carried out in September 2024 to procure a contractor to repaint the structure, those were also placed on hold due to its cost. Now it seems that there is no current intention to resume the work and reopen the attraction. A report from CPC reads, quote, "The Titan crane is currently closed to the public, following a board decision not to proceed with extensive repair works due to the high costs involved. At present, there are no confirmed plans or funding in place to reopen or repurpose the crane, and its future use remains uncertain. The asset will remain closed while management undertakes a wider strategic review to determine the long-term options for the site." End quote. A spokesperson for Western Bartonshire Council says a wider strategic view on the future of the crane is required for future decisions to be made. The spokesperson said, quote, "Essential maintenance continues to be carried out to ensure the crane is safe and compliant. The board has committed to undertake a wider strategic review of the long-term future of the crane, including options for use, funding and investment." End quote. This exclusive article was written by Emily Moore, as read by Libby Wilson.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.